Meeting of the General Ordinary Council meeting of Devonport City Council. It's Monday the 24th of May and the time being 5:30. Council acknowledge and pay respects to the Tasmanian Aboriginal community as the traditional and original owners and continuing custodians of this land. All persons in attendance are advised that it's council policy to record council meetings in accordance with council's digital recording policy. The digital recording of this meeting will be made available to the public on council's website for a minimum period of 6 months. And a reminder that this meeting is being streamed live by council's YouTube channel. Item 1 is apologies, and we do have an apology from Councillor Laycock. Councillor Ennis is not yet in the room, but I'm assuming he will be present shortly. Item 2, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest on any item on this agenda? No? Item 3.1 is confirmation of minutes of the meeting of April 26th. Do I have a mover, please?
So moved.
Councillor Hollister.
Second.
And Councillor Murphy. Councillor Hollister, any comment?
Nothing further to add.
Councillor Murphy?
Nothing further.
Any other comments, questions? Councillor Hollister to close.
Consider it closed.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Item 3.2.1 is responses to questions raised at prior meetings, and there is a recommendation for the response to endorse the response to a question from Mr. Russell.
So moved.
Councillor Perry, thank you.
Second.
Councillor Jarman. Councillor Perry, any comment?
Oh, nothing to say, thank you.
Councillor Jarman.
Nothing.
Any other comments, questions? Councillor Perry to close.
Consider it closed.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Item 3.2.2 is questions on notice from the public, and there is a recommendation to endorse the correspondence and the response to Mr. Bellicott. One move, please.
I moved.
Second.
Councillor Perry, Councillor Murphy, any comment? Councillor Perry?
No comment, thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Murphy?
It's all there.
Any other comments, questions? Councillor Perry to close.
Consider it closed.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? The motion is carried unanimously. Item 3.2.3 is questions without notice from the public. An opportunity for members of the public to come forward, stating your name and address and asking your questions. Thank you. Mr. Dan. Mr. Dan?
Thank you, Mayor Roxburgh. How come there is a zebra crossing on the public domain footpath at the hockey grounds at the Bluff?
I'm not clear on exactly where you mean, Mr. Jamie.
Would you know where the hockey ground is?
Yes, I
at the
know the
Bluff?
hockey ground is.
Just to the east of that is a parking area,
Yes.
and the drive-in, the footpath, it's got a zebra crossing on it. How come?
I'm not sure. I'll take that on notice, thank you.
And the second question is, why not zebra crossings on footpaths at other places with a similar configuration? E.g., multi-storey car park, Edward Street car park.
As it's follow on from that question, I'll take that on notice as well. Thank you, Mr. Dillon.
Right. Third question, where a footpath is blocked off due to the property owner doing some renovations, is rent paid to the council for the use of the footpath that is denied to pedestrians?
Mr. Hopkins, thank you.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. No, there's no rent or fee payable in those situations, but we do require the developer or the resident to get a road reserve permit.
So we get a,
road reserve permit.
thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dillon. Are there any other questions?
Right, Trevor Smith, 7 Glenfort, Devonport. Dear Chairperson, I wish to submit this question. What category are the new footpaths under construction from Friend Street to 162 Stony Rise Road, Devonport, in regards to walkability and medium walkability? Are there any other classifications that you have given to this new section of footpath? Could you please fully explain to me the criteria that you use to make your decisions on walkability? Do you use pedestrian traffic flows, people riding push bikes, or people pushing prams along this road to make your decisions? No weasel words in your correspondence, please.
Mr. Smith, be very careful in your comments. I'll take that as it's a fairly involved question. I'll take it. Mr. Atkins is prepared to answer, so thank you.
Yeah, through you, Mayor, the footpaths that are currently being constructed along Stony Rise Road are actually being undertaken by the Department of State Growth.
Right. I'll re-say that in a letter of correspondence, please.
No, it's been answered at the meeting,
Right,
so
right.
it'll be in the minutes of this meeting.
Right. The next question is the cost, which is irrelevant because it's under state grant.
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
Not for me.
Mr. Russell.
Thank you. Rodney Russell, 225 Steel Street, Devonport. Item 5.1 on today's agenda, tender to spray weeds given to Steed's Weeds. Does this also include the spraying of weeds in the Lawrence Drive Cemetery and around the boundary fence of the adjoining council depot, for example?
Thank you, Mr. Atkins. Mr. Sterling, thank you.
Through you, Mayor, so that particular contract has a schedule of services, and it also has the ability for council to call in services under an agreed schedule of rates for particular pieces of work. So some of the routine cemetery spraying would be included in that contract, and we also have the capacity to call in additional services if we need to.
Thank you. Did you have another question?
Does that also include the boundary fence of the council depot? Oh, thank you, it does. Item 5.3, Devonport Community Volunteer Sustainability Strategy. Under a heading, Community Engagement, are Red Cross, Friends Van, Salvation Army, Mersey Community Care, Libraries Tasmania, Hospice Care, Don River Railway. What I do not see is a heading, Devonport City Council. Question, how are the Devonport City Council's own volunteers, excuse me, those with the gallery and the Maritime Museum, for example, represented?
I would ask Ms. Atkins or Ms. Hampton to respond. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So managers of those facilities were engaged during the consultation process.
Thank you.
But gallery's own volunteers? I guess the councils. I'm not allowed to debate, am I?
No, Mr. Russell, if you have further question, perhaps you'd like to put it in writing.
Okay.
Thank you.
On the 15th of the 4th, I wrote to both the Mayor and the General Manager about my garden beside a newly replaced section of footpath. I see that you passed this letter on to the Works Supervisor, Peter Tewson, who responded with a reply in writing. Have you both seen a copy of his reply to me? And would this also be the same Works Supervisor who would have been responsible for the supervising the reconstruction of the Hollywood Street footpath?
As that relates to a staff person, Mr. Russell, I'm not going to accept that question. I will ask you to put it in writing again to the General Manager and we will respond in writing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
Christopher Mills, 52 Caroline Street. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. May I say that the following question does comply with the public question time policy. The question concerns council activities. This question does not cast aspersions on any particular staff. I have respected the rights and privacy of individuals by not identifying any person. The reason this question is being raised is that significant new evidence from a state government source has come to light, and therefore this question could not have been asked before. I would appreciate it if the minute taker could recall this question, including the above, in its entirety. Thank you. The question then is, this month I have received confirmation from the Land Titles Office, Hobart, that the land at 54 Caroline Street is private land, and that this administration has no legal right to remove property from it. Did this general manager authorise the gifting of private property from this land with a value of some $1,000 by a council employee in November 2019 to the developer of Merseyview Court? That is the question.
I'll take it on notice, Mr Mills, thank you. Did you have another question?
Let me ask another question. With all respect, this question concerns your mayorship. You are doing a wonderful job as mayor, but at the last council meeting, the 26th of April, the video records you as twice interrupting me by saying that I had 3 minutes. I regard this as bullying, as the public question time policy at item 6 allows for a maximum time of 5 minutes.
I will interrupt you by making a public apology to you, Mr Mills, around that. I reread our policy again this afternoon and realised that I had made a mistake. When we changed it to having 3 questions, we extended the time. So I will publicly apologise to you for that.
Thank you. Would the minute taker please report that in its entirety?
The minute taker will take notes as she needs to. Thank you, Mr Mills.
Right. If I may continue.
You may.
Your mayorship then incorrectly claimed that my question 2, quote, had been asked and answered before. The video at 13 minutes 45 clearly records my protest that it is a completely different question. I may just continue a bit more. Your mayorship then further declined to answer my question 3, but undertook to do so by letter. I duly handed in a letter to you dated the 29th of April requesting the information you had offered to provide. There has been no response from you whatsoever. I suggest this shows a lack of respect. The question is then, has there been, and is there now, an understanding between yourself and the General Manager to avoid answering any questions that I may raise at public question time? That is the question.
Mr Mills, given the history of the number of questions that have been responded to from you, I think that that question is and should be answered no. We have certainly answered many questions from you many times over, and if you get new questions, then there will continue to be new answers. Thank you.
Question 3, very brief. Who holds the current position of Parks and Reserves Coordinator?
We will answer that question in writing. Thank you.
Much obliged, thank you.
Malcolm Gowden, 4 Beaumont Drive. Question 1. The annual report 2019-20 indicates the total council borrowings were reduced by about $1.8 million during the financial year. With reference to the council response to the current agenda, question 1 on notice, from Mr Bob Vellacoff in that total council debt as at the 30th of April is $48,513,342, being a further reduction of about $1.5 million, or 3% of the loan value, plus loan interest of about another $1.25 million. Albeit council had stated in 2016 the project model is based on stage one generating sufficient new revenue to fund interest on the borrowings. I now ask, does council believe this is an acceptable level of annual reduction in loan principal to pay down the debt in a timely manner to avoid inevitable future interest rate rises and when asset sales run out?
I'll take that as comment, Mr. Garden. Did you have another question?
So, you know,
I'll accept that you have made comment around our current financial.
okay, is that a comment on whether you think you're paying that profit?
I'll accept that you've made comment on it. Thank you.
Okay.
This isn't a debate. Did you have a second question?
Yes, I do. Thank you very much. I might just premise this question two by saying I'd suggest if council actually answered questions first up, then probably 75% all of the questions asked by the ratepayers wouldn't need to be asked.
Take that as comment.
That is a comment. My question too, Madam Chair, is the second part of Mr Vellacott's question was how much of that debt is attributed to the overall Living City project, to which council responded $31,683,342 relates to the construction of stage one of Living City master plan, which was not what the question asked.
Then, Mr. Garden, I would request that Mr. Vellacock will require more information if he wants it. Thank you.
Well, I now ask, does council, I repeat the question in that how much of the total debt of $48.5 million is attributed to the overall, and I'll say total, Living City project?
Mr. Garden, the question's been asked and answered in writing. Did you have another question?
Madam Chair,
Mr. Garden isn't a
it asked for the total debt for Living City, not stage one.
Then I would suggest that you be clear in your questions and ask them in writing in future if you want a more specific answer than I'm prepared to give you right now.
You won't tell us what the total debt on Living City.
I don't have those kind of 31,100,000.
Would you like to take it on notice?
I would, if you want to pop it in writing, I will.
Well, it is in writing. You're about to get it in writing, Madam Chair.
Then we'll take it on notice.
Oh, thank you very much.
Did you
I
have
would like an answer. Question three. Council previously advised at the time some 10 million related to Living City property purchase loans, including for 2026 Best Street. To explain, former Harris Scarf site, loan of 4.4 million, required for parkland with around 630 square metres of the site sold to the hotel developer for about $750,000 less than the purchase price. And 17 Fenton Way, the current Harris Scarf site, a loan of 5 million, utilised as temporary council office to facilitate stage one construction. Will council confirm that the residual loan amounts for all Living City property purchases are included when stating an overall total Living City residual loan amount?
I'll take that on notice. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other questions? No? Oh, Mr. Vellacock.
Thank you.
Bob Vellacock, financial ratepayer, 11 Cocker Place, Devonport. Mayor and councillors, I refer to my questions at the March and April 2021 council meeting about safety at Providore Place and your and the General Manager's responses, which indicated that it was of no business of council in regard to what amounts of flammable liquids and products were stored on the premises and including other safety issues raised by me. The attitude appeared to take into no account the amount of persons within the premises and the surrounds, be they few or in 100 or so at times, mostly all encouraged by council and your agents to congregate there. On the 3rd of May 2021, I received correspondence from a most reliable source, and I have it to hand, among other things. It contained the following information, and I quote, it said, inspectors have visited the site and are working with the business owner to ensure compliance. I must say, this is myself now, that was the quote from I must say, working with the owner to ensure compliance sounds like to me likely this has previously been less than compliant, considering the considerable changes that have been made and may be still being made. Incidentally, in response to a question asked on the 27th of July 2021 about ethanol storage at Commodore Place.
Mr. Bellicott, would you clarify that date for me, please?
Incidentally, in response to a question asked on the 27th of July 2021, July 20, beg your pardon.
Thank you.
About ethanol storage at Providore Place, the General Manager's response was, I can confirm the items stored within the food pavilion no longer contain any hazardous material. Council is comfortable with the storage arrangements that exist in Providore Place and that potential hazards are being managed appropriately. Mayor and General Manager, I now ask on behalf of many concerned ratepayers and citizens, question 1. Were you aware when I expressed concerns and asked questions about it at the March and April 2021 ordinary meeting that inspectors were or had been on site at Providore Place working with the business owner to ensure compliance? Were you aware of the inspectors?
Thank you. Thank
Through
you.
the Mayor, we'll reply to Mr. Bellicott in writing, just to clarify some of Mr. Bellicott's summary of what he believed I said is incorrect. I don't believe I said that we're not concerned about it. I outlined the process that's being followed and clarified the applicable regulations and controls. So I'll just clarify that it wasn't, I don't think that once we said that we're not concerned about it.
I didn't say
We will reply to Mr. Bellicott in writing.
Thank you. Did you have a further question?
Yes.
Mr. Bellicott?
Do you now know if all the fitting out, the fixtures, storage and manufacturing process complies with all recognised best practice standards for safety within that building? Now, since the inspectors.
I think that relates to the first question and we'll take that as part of that. Thank you.
If I may ask a third question.
You know, thank you.
Mayor and councillors, I refer to my follow-up question I'll notice in this evening's agenda in regard to the predicted income for Providore Place and the General Manager's response, which you all have now just endorsed. My question, if I may, is to the General Manager. General Manager, I assert that you have again given an answer to my question. To put it simply, you appear to be saying that the dashboard produced by consultants B&I, incidentally at great cost to ratepayers, the projected council would receive annual rent of some $400,000 for the food pavilion, and which was used by council to obtain government funding, was more or less just a step in the dark.
Mr. Bellicott,
because you told us...
Mr. Bellicott, if you have a question, then
that's the I'm coming to the question there.
I'm not going to take any more comment from Mr. Bellicott.
Therefore, because you told us, General Manager, to justify construction of
Mr.
the
Bellicott,
this is my question there.
Then just put the question.
No, I'm putting the question, sorry. I'm putting the question. Therefore, because you told us to justify the construction of the pavilion, the head lease would guarantee $400,000 per annum income. I ask at this date, what percentage of your guaranteed rental of $400,000 per annum was achieved? That was a guarantee.
Mr. Bellicott, this isn't a debate. The question's been asked and answered, and I'll take no further comment from you. Thank you.
It wasn't answered.
Thank you, Mr. Devonport.
It wasn't answered.
Everyone had a turn? Thank you, we'll move on. Item 3.3, questions on notice from councillors, and there are no questions at this point. Item 3.4 is notices of motion, and item 3.4.1 is Four Ways Green Street speed humps motion from councillor Jarman. I'm assuming you're moving the motion, councillor Jarman.
I certainly am, thank you.
Do I have a second there?
Happy to second.
So that's councillor Jarman.
Yes, thank you. Look, it's pretty clear and concise what I'm asking for. We've had business owners approach me and talk to me about their concerns. Four Ways is a small but built up business district. We have two sets of lights on either side of that Four Ways business district. There's only a short distance in between both. We understand that because of that we can't comply with code or regulations necessarily to allow some kind of form of crossing that stops the traffic and allows people to safely cross by stopping traffic. So my thought would be that we look at least having one large traffic halter. I don't know what you'd call it. I don't want it to be a wombat crossing, so I don't know what the engineer would come up with, but we certainly need a qualified traffic engineer to give us his thoughts and to put that into a report, which I know is forthcoming anyway. Do we know how quickly that's coming up? Mr. General Manager or Mr. Skirby? If I can just add to that. Yes.
Yeah, through you, Mayor. So we've actually started work with GHD on the traffic network study already. We're expecting there's probably 2 to 3 months work to do the analysis, and there's some traffic volume measuring that needs to happen as part of that, but certainly there'll be some preliminary feedback that we can bring back to a workshop with council coming on.
Excellent. Well, thank you. So I guess that's, in a nutshell, that's what we'd like to see, and certainly has that consideration for the Four Ways area. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Alexa.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Yes, I'll be supporting this motion. We definitely know there's been a bit of few risks there. Always there. Want to make it safe for the pedestrians crossing the street. There's been a few issues over the years, but hope we can have a better look at this. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Councillor Carey.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I'm going to be supporting the motion, primarily because in the officer's comments, we are, as we've already spoken of, getting a review conducted on some traffic management proposals around Devonport, and this can form part of that. And when we get an answer back on that and some recommendations back on that, then we'll have a clearer idea of what can actually be done safely. So I think that, yeah, the motion makes sense. You've got nothing to lose by accepting it. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Councillor Murphy.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with the previous speaker, Councillor Perry. I think it's a point of contention with the shop owners in that particular precinct. But I think we do have to follow the due process, and I think that's the appropriate process that we're going to follow.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? I guess I'd just like to say that I was a little reluctant when I saw the request for an independent qualified traffic engineer, given that we have experts on this team, but as has already been alluded to, the GH&D have already been engaged to do other work, so it makes sense for that to be part of that. So I'm absolutely prepared to support the motion. Councillor Jarman to close.
Thank you. Yes, that's the only reason that was added in. That we already had that in place, so the General Manager assisted me with that information, which was great. So it certainly helped for me to clarify what we need going forward. So thank you for the comments. Cheers.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 4 is Planning Authority matters, and there are no matters around planning before council this evening. Item 5 is reports, and item 5.1 is a tender report regarding contract 1341 for weed control. Do I have a move, please?
So moved.
Councillor Murphy, seconder.
Second.
Councillor Hollister, thank you. Councillor Murphy, any comments?
Thank you, Mayor. Obviously, the tender committee's gone through its due diligence. It's wasn't much difference between the two. I think Steve's weeds, I think Mr. Russell alluded to, is obviously doing a reasonably good job. So I don't see any reason why we shouldn't support the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Hollister.
I concur, so that we can actually bring them back with an additional worker if the others need. Nothing further to add.
Thank you. Councillor Jarman.
Yes, I've just got one question. I've just been asked, I suppose I'll put through to Mr. Scurvy, that's all right, if that's okay with you, Mayor. People are concerned environmentally that we're using the correct and allowed different controls. I suppose we just want to know that we comply with everything. I'm sure we do, but I've just been asked to make sure that consideration is taken into effect. I believe in the spraying, don't get me wrong, and we certainly need to have weed control, but as long as it's environmentally friendly, all we're doing is everything we can under code.
Thank you, Mr. Scurvy.
So under the contract requirements, the contractor is required to demonstrate the necessary competencies in terms of utilisation of scheduled chemicals. There has been a lot of discussion in the community around the use of glyphosate and Roundup. One of the terms that is still an approved herbicide for use, but on balance, it's only one of a mix of products that the council utilise in terms of our activities in terms of weed control.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments? Councillor Murphy to close.
Thank you, Mayor. I think it's noteworthy that this could be one particular issue if the current contractor wasn't doing a good job that we brought to council's attention. So I think it's good that we're staying with the existing contractor because obviously he's been doing a good job and consider it closed.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Item 5.2 is a change of instrument used for our common seal. There's a recommendation there. Can I have a move, please?
Moved.
Second.
Councillor Hollister, Councillor Jarman. Councillor Hollister, any comment?
Just that we're getting with the times. Nothing further to add.
Thank you, Councillor Jarman.
I think that's a pretty wise move to move into what they need. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Councillor Hollister to close.
Consider it closed.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? Motion is carried unanimously. Item 5.3 is the Devonport Community Volunteer Sustainability Strategy. Do I have a move, please?
So moved.
Councillor Jarman. Second.
I'll second.
Councillor Milborn. Thank you. Councillor Jarman.
Yes, a wonderful strategy that's been put together. A lot of hard work and a lot of people have had input into this, and the group, the organisation that was running it, did a really great job. I was very lucky to be part of it a couple of times, and I appreciate council's support and assistance in enabling this to happen, because it's been a really important thing. One of the biggest things that we've got to understand is we've just celebrated National Volunteer Week, and we do all appreciate our volunteers, but the future's looking a little bit grim, and this needs to be implemented. This needs to be taken very seriously. We see that, you know, it's very sad to see something like an institution like Devonport Show fall because they just don't have enough volunteers to run them. You see some service clubs aren't existing anymore. It's all because we're just not looking at bringing through the future, bringing through the youth and getting them involved and showing them what it's all about. It's amazing how simple it is to know that your kids volunteer without even knowing about it. Even just at your pony clubs or your sporting clubs, they stay back and someone might referee or someone might help out at the canteen. They're already volunteering, but they just don't know that. So it's about us educating our young people of the community and explain that they're already doing it, they're already part of the framework of that, and to show them what a good thing it is. And maybe that's going to help us if we realise that we've got to really talk to the kids and educate them about volunteering and how important it is. So this strategy is vital, and it's certainly a really good tool, and there's been a lot of work put into it, and I hope that we use it, and it's a great resource. So I certainly appreciate having it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Moore.
Thank you. I think it's a great initiative, especially being involved in a number of clubs around Devonport that always struggle for volunteers. There's never such a thing as too many volunteers, and it'd be great to be in that situation. And with clubs getting busier and volunteers needing to have more certificates like first aid and working with vulnerable people cards, it'd be great to have a pool of people that we can draw on every now and again to fulfil some roles.
Thank you. Councillor Berry.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I concur with the previous two speakers. I think Devonport City Council over many years has well recognised the role of volunteers in our community, because we are acutely aware that without those volunteers there are a lot of activities that go on under the auspices of council, not to mention all the numerous sporting bodies and clubs around our city that have volunteers. If we didn't have those volunteers, and it becomes problematic in future years, and those activities will go with them. So we do need to encourage people to volunteer, and we need to make it as easy as we possibly can, given the confines of compliance, the never-ending litany of compliance certificates and a lot of other stuff that volunteers do need going forward. And I'm not critical of that per se, but it does make it more difficult for I guess random volunteers to show up and do bits and pieces under that sort of regime. But we do recognise that, and we should continue to recognise the volunteers, because they do a terrific job. We wouldn't be able to do what we do without them. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Holst.
Question for whoever. We all know that COVID virtually stopped most volunteering last year and this year. Are we getting back to our volunteers back in all our establishments?
Are you referring directly to council's volunteers?
Yes, well, bash rates.
Yeah, council's volunteers. Yeah.
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor. We do have a plan in place for return to volunteerism in our centres, namely the Visitor Information Centre and the Bass Strait Maritime Centre. There's some specific challenges in each of those sites, some of them being environmental, some being outside of our control, but we do have a plan in place for the return of those volunteers. In brief, there's some challenges around our COVID plan that we can't meet with volunteers on site, but beyond that there's some other challenges on.
Thanks, Mr. Dobson. Are there any other questions or comments? I guess I'd just like to say that it's really great that we've been proactive in this space, and I think the state government funding and volunteering task will have supported us through this process. And yeah, having a proactive approach I think is going to be really important given the changes particularly that have happened over the last 12 or 18 months. Councillor Jarman to close.
Consider it closed.
Thank you. I've got a motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Item 6 is information. 6.1 is workshops and briefing sessions held since the last council meeting. Do I have a move, please?
So moved.
Councillor Milborn, Councillor Milborn.
It's all then, nothing further.
Councillor Milborn.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, a couple of interesting topics that were discussed in our workshops, which we will continue to work through.
Certainly will. Thank you. Are there any other comments, questions? Councillor Berry? No? Sorry. No, that's sorry. I didn't want to miss you. Councillor Milborn to close.
Consider it closed.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Item 6.2 is the Mayor's report for May. Are there any? Can I remove it, please?
Moved.
Councillor Holst for that. Do I have a seconder?
Second.
Councillor Alexia, thank you. Councillor Holst.
Been very busy as usual. Nothing further to add.
Thank you, councillor Alexio.
Great work, Madam Mayor. Maybe really busy in shared activities that you've been attending. Good work.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions? Councillor Hollister to close.
Closed.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Item 6.3 is the General Manager's report for the same period for May 2021. Do I have a mover, please?
So moved.
Councillor Perry, seconder.
Second.
Councillor Alexio got up first. Councillor Perry.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Another comprehensive month for the General Manager. And I must comment on the budget process we're going through now through our Teams platform. It's the best budget process I've been involved with, and that continues to evolve each year with our IT whiz, Jeff, coming up with new ways of getting that information out to us in a sensible way that gets us here on one particular night or a couple of nights, and we can make decisions and think about things well beforehand with the way that the format's been presented to us. So long may it continue and keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Alexio.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Mayor. I agree with Councillor Perry there. It makes great sense, and as a councillor, we're able to put some suggestions or comments to the General Manager, so it's a great way to get the message across.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions of the General Manager? Councillor Murphy.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, just a question for the General Manager in relation to the Legat General Manager's workshop and the update from the PESRAC report. What was the general feeling in the room amongst the GMs in relation to timelines that have been outlined in that particular report? And what's the consensus, or was there one, or can you provide us, or maybe the community, with a bit of an update?
Through you, Mayor, that workshop was actually prior to the state election, so I guess the discussion would be around should the current government get re-elected, what might that mean? How quickly may they consider the issue of local government reform? 29 general managers, probably 29 different views on where all that might land and what it might look like. I think it's pretty clear there under the PESRAC committee, though, what they recommend in regard to local government reform, and the next few months will be interesting how that rolls out.
Thank you, Councillor Murphy. Councillor Jarman.
I'd just like to highlight the Dalberton letter. It's good to see that we've got an early contractor involvement now for the organics recycling facility. I will talk about that until the cows come home. It's one of the main instigators of us really becoming more green and friendly and environmentally sustainable. And so I certainly like seeing where it's already at. I would have thought this would have been a 5-year plan. It's happening already, so I'm quite excited by that. So can't wait to see the next step, the next stage. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions of the Manager? Councillor Perry.
Consider it closed.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Item 4.6 is the Community Services Report for March and April 2021. Do I have a move of the recommendation, please?
So moved.
Councillor Jarman, do I have a seconder?
I'll second.
Councillor Alexio. Councillor Jarman.
Thank you. Been very busy. Lots of things happening. Isn't it nice after last year? So I think we're making up for it in spades. And so congratulations to all the staff involved in all the wonderful events that we've had, too numerous to mention really. And wonderful to see Devonport celebrating turning 40. Nice to see some of the previous councillors and mayors that turned up as well, let alone the public that were in the mall. Nice to see the mall being used for a good event, so it was great. And I've just got one question, if I may. It's on page 34, and it's re the community partnerships. It's just certainly nothing against this part of our partnership. I'm very grateful to it, but I'm just asking about the Lions Club one, that Taste the Harvest. We didn't have Taste the Harvest. They've kind of walked away from that. So where are we at with that? Do we give them the money, you know, how does that work, I suppose? Is the question.
Through you,
Thank
Madam
you.
Mayor. So prior to cancelling Taste the Harvest last time, we did actually pay them the money under the partnership agreement, which they've subsequently paid back because the event didn't proceed. So that partnership agreement is effectively, I'll update that to show that that's now at an end.
So does that money kind of sit there that we might be able to give back to the harvest if they want to proceed going forward? How does that work? General Manager, maybe?
It was actually with that particular group, so. I guess it
Yeah,
would be
through
very-
there, yeah, it's in the current year's budget, so I guess it's a decision to council for the future budget.
All right.
Should they wish to make an allocation, but at this point we haven't allowed anything.
Thank you.
Councillor Alexia.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. No, nothing further to add there. It's all there in the report.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments in relation to that report? Councillor Jarman to close.
Consider closed, thank you.
Thank you. For the motion, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? Motion is carried unanimously. Item 6.5 is General Management, People and Finance and Corporate Services Report for March and April. Do I have a mover of that recommendation, please?
So moved.
Councillor Milburn.
I'll second that.
Councillor Perry, thank you. Councillor Milburn.
Very thorough report, nothing to add.
Thank you. Councillor Perry.
Oh, yeah, I agree, a very thorough report like the previous one, so keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions related to that report? Councillor Milburn to close.
Consider it closed.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? Motion is carried unanimously. Right, was a very thorough report. I'm getting in. Item 6.6 is the Convention and Arts Centre report for March and April. Do I have a mover, please?
So moved.
Councillor Jarman. Do I have a seconder?
Happy to second.
Councillor Alexia. Councillor Jarman.
Again, a lot of wonderful exhibits that are back on board and so much for people to do and see. I hope everybody gets out there, even though it might be turning a little bit colder now. It's always a nice place to go to the Convention and Art Centres and our art gallery and places that people can go and be nice and warm and dry and enjoy. So, and I hope everyone went to see Buddy Holly because it was amazing. And really nice to see the state government had allowed access for people to, if there was 100% capacity in the theatre, they just on the cusp were allowing people to go there without having to wear face masks, which I think people were more comfortable with, of course. So it made it a more pleasant experience, but we understand the safety concerns of the state government and they've done a really good job. So it's really nice to see. And I do commend all the wonderful things we're doing with our young people in the community. Some of the education and public programs are just wonderful, and there's an amazing new mural on the side of the wall up the laneway, which I'm just so pleased to see. I actually didn't know it was coming, and then to see it already done and having so many people involved in it, it's just a wonderful thing to see. And I can't wait to see every single piece of cement that looks ugly gets covered in colourful art, and we become a colourful place for people to walk around, because it's just adds to the beauty of the place. So thank you.
Councillor Alexia.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Yeah, look, I think Mr Dobson's been doing a great job. Since last year when we had COVID, things really went to a standstill, and things are starting to, as you can hear from Councillor Jarman, things are starting to get back on board and things are starting to happen. We start seeing them in the reports here. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments, questions? I'll ask Councillor Jarman to close.
Consider it closed.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Item 6.7 is the annual plan progress report to the 30th of April 2021. Do I have a mover, please?
So moved.
Councillor Murphy, thank you. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second.
Seconder, Councillor Milburn, thank you. Councillor Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Very detailed report considering it's a progress report, so there should be some interest in reading in there for members of the community, working towards our annual plan.
Thank you. Councillor Milborn.
Nothing better.
Are there any other comments, questions on the annual plan report? I'll ask Councillor Wood to close.
Consider it closed.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Item 6.8, elected members' expense report up till the 30th of April. Do I have a mover, please?
So moved.
Councillor Perry, can I have a seconder?
Second then.
Councillor Alex, thank you. Councillor Perry.
Really procedural, Mayor, nothing to see, really, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Alex, yeah.
Thanks, Madam Mayor, that's all there in the report.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Councillor Perry, closed.
Consider it closed.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Item 6.9 is unconfirmed minutes of the Crown Coast Authority Reps meeting of the 25th of March. Do I have a mover, please?
So moved.
Councillor Murphy, thank you. Do I have a seconder?
Everybody second.
Councillor Alex, thank you. Councillor Murphy.
Merely procedural.
Thank you. Councillor Murphy. Oh, sorry, Councillor Alexia.
Thanks, Madam Mayor, no, it's all there in the report there.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions? Councillor Murphy.
Consider it closed.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Item 7 is section 23 committees, and we have no section 23 committees in progress at the moment, which brings us to closed session. Can I have a mover to move out of open session? Moving the closed
Second.
session. Councillor Perry, Councillor Murphy, and comments?
Nothing.
No? I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? The motion's carried unanimously, and I declare the open session of this meeting closed at 6:21. Thank you, members of the gallery.